Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about Crowbar Collective's long-running remake, Black Mesa. Now, before I really begin this review, I do feel it's necessary to mention that I'm a veteran of this franchise, Half-Life consumed, and perhaps in part defined, a good chunk of my childhood as I spent countless hours playing and replaying the title, and countless mods, which is to say the source material has a rather special place in my heart. Still, the biggest reason for why I'm choosing to make this review is the fact that it doesn't just faithfully recreate the game with some tweaks. It entirely remakes the final segment of the game's end. Anyways, with that little blurb aside, let's actually dive in and see if I thought this remake was a successful experiment, or if the state of the game is a Half-Life at best. Now, if you've played Half-Life, the overall story beats remain much the same. You take the role of Gordon Freeman, a theoretical physicist employed at the Black Mesa Research Facility. Unfortunately, that PhD doesn't mean much in the face of the disastrous breach between worlds that gets accidentally created. Something which leaves Gordon not only doing his best to survive the lapse to become a truly hazardous space, but also leaving him to fend off otherworldly invaders and government forces sent to quiet everything down. Now, unlike the source material, there is admittedly an entire ARG hidden in and out of the game, but otherwise the broad strokes remain the same. There are some neat new details in the form of extra lines of dialogue for some of the NPCs, though much of its flavor, but many of the set pieces that occur in the original game provide environmental storytelling and pace setting have been carried over quite faithfully. That is until you reach Zen, at which point it goes off the rails. Sure, the ultimate conclusion of your adventure still goes the same way, but there's a lot of effort into making the journey a bit more memorable. For instance, the plot note of the Vortigoths being enslaved is made a lot more apparent in this iteration of the game. In fact, there's some great bits of environmental storytelling which helps to rekindle the same sense of horror and panic that earlier acts of the game could convey, and which made me so much more excited about what was to come. But, anyways, let's dive into what Black Mesa brings to the table mechanically. I'd say one of the first major differences I came across when playing this versus the OG title is that it was an altogether more challenging experience. Whilst the enemies you encounter will be familiar, they're typically more lethal, not only because the Black Mesa difficulty is a bit rougher, but also due to the fact that the AI is generally a bit more merciless, and your foes have new attacks to familiarize yourself with. That difference definitely helped to keep the feeling of treading through earlier areas a lot fresher. What's more, there's alterations to the stages at large, with some elements being restored while others were cut. That said, the meat of what I want to talk about is Zen. Whilst the original version of the alien's homeworld was a dreary collection of platforms floating in space whose primary threats were either fall damage or endless tumbles into the void, the Black Mesa version of the border world is not only noticeably expanded, it's also an enjoyable region to explore. Yes, there's a decent array of platforming to be found, and even some light puzzle solving to do as you navigate Zen, and yet it feels a lot more satisfying because of the changes to the long jump that's been introduced in Black Mesa. For one thing, you can adjust your forward or side velocity mid-air, which helps a lot, but beyond that, you don't actually take fall damage, which helps players prevent from keeling over from gradually mounting injuries due to bad falls. Honestly, it's really convenient, and it let me focus a lot more on, well, everything else trying to kill me. Because whilst the tried and true alien cast makes their appearance across Zen, there's also some newcomers unique to the area, which made for some interesting moments. Special mention to the aquatic variant of the barnacle for making me so utterly terrified of them that I never let myself get caught by them once and instead just went, oh god, fuck no. Moreover, Zen's two bosses do reprise their role, but they're different in a fundamental number of ways. Gonarch, the creepy gonad spider, now has a sprawling stage she stalks you through, or he or it, I don't know, it's a gonad spider, which makes the final encounter that much more satisfying. Likewise, the Lance still serves as the capstone of the game, but he's a much more varied and deadly encounter, who has some truly impressive attacks at his disposal, both visually and functionally. But then, I just love what this game brings to the table aesthetically. I love discovering the new animations that existed for the game's enemies, and even your new idols for the weapons you held. But what had me floored was the changes to the environment. Now, whilst for the main portion of the games, I found myself enjoying the updates to once familiar corridors, Zen was a treat. I really couldn't brace myself for just how good, organic, and okay, so as opposed to the disjointed platforms looming in the void, I was treated to a lush environment that truly felt like it was a biome meant to support all the incredibly hostile life forms of the border world. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I found myself pausing when I got my first long look at what I was going to be traversing. Even when the game reaches the factory-esque finale, the areas look fantastic, though, disconcertingly squishy and squicky. So, if you have an issue with the floor being flesh, you're maybe gonna have some problems, especially since this game is on point in the audio department, and you are going to be privy to every single wet footfall you make as you venture across the quivering surface of the ground. But yeah, really, the sound effects in general are just phenomenal, and what's more, the state of excellence extends to the soundtrack, which has some awesome bits of music to accompany your attempts at not dying. That and the overall quality of the voice acting to the game is just solid. But, that all said, it's time for our finale, and well, it shouldn't be that hard to notice that I am an avid fan of this title. I appreciate the attention to detail that was applied in not only recreating the game, but remastering it, of elevating its visuals and gameplay so it's not a carbon clone of its origins. And that's also where my highest praise comes, since whilst I'm a, fan of Half-Life itself as a franchise, the Zen segments can uniformly suck my dick in the OG game. I hated them, okay? I was not a fan. It was me playing through the game, going to Zen, and being like, well, now there's this. Yeah. So, then having the pleasure of actually going through Black Mesa's vision for Zen, in and of itself, I'd say, it makes a compelling argument for even other veterans of the series to go and immerse themselves in this game. It's got some brilliant set pieces and lovely area design, and for those who are new to the game, it's an enjoyable way of visiting where the franchise took root. Overall, I'd personally say this title is a crit hit and well worth a venture inside. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, or our Monday TTRPG content when it resumes, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. There's also a Discord. You can click the link in the banner or the description to become a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a coffee running now to help supplement funds for a lovely editor and to make sure we can continue to provide quality content. Again, you can check the description and the banner for them links. That said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care until then, folks.